The firm finds itself in the difficult position of facing calls for an apology for Britain's colonial past and slavery reparations. Professor Philip Murphy, Director of History Policy at the Institute of Historical Research, said. The expert explained working members of the firm have their hands tied when it comes to these topics, as it is up to the government to decide whether to issue reparations for Britain's historical involvement in the slave trade. However, when touring countries which have been hugely affected by the horrific trade such as the Queen's overseas realms in the Caribbean, it is the royals who face protests and demands from activists and, at times, political leaders. Asked what the royal family can do to avoid criticism similar to the one suffered by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and the Earl and Countess of Wessex during their recent visits to Caribbean nations, Professor Murphy told Express.co.uk, "There isn't much a royal family in a constitutional monarchy can do. And it does create a huge problem because that's not well understood. Increasingly, visits to the Caribbean are becoming a focus for protests. Protesters know there will be a lot of journalists around and will have likely coverage for their cause if they write an open letter to royal visitors, if they stage a protest while they are arriving. I think the palace is now faced with a dilemma. Visits of this sort were seen in the past as UK soft power, but increasingly they are a cause for embarrassment. So I suspect that what will happen is that they will become far less frequent." The expert stressed most foreign visits carried out by the royals are on behalf of the government. Even when they travel overseas to represent the Crown and, as it is happening this year, to mark the Platinum Jubilee, senior royals must follow the policies set by Downing Street. He said, "I think it is very difficult. Because clearly the royal family can't make its own foreign policy. Anything members of the royal family say when they are visiting foreign countries has got to be in line with the British government's policies." As head of state, the Queen, Professor Murphy explained, represents an exception. He said, "The exception, of course, would be if the Queen was in one of her realms, in Canada, Australia or even Jamaica, and made a speech on the advice of her local Prime Minister. She doesn't travel at all now, but if she was traveling it would be feasible for her to go to Jamaica and read a speech, written by the Prime Minister calling for reparations from the UK as the Queen of Jamaica. But it is recognised that other members of the royal family travel on behalf of the British government, and the government's line so far has been to avoid as much as possible the subject, to avoid apologies, to refuse claims for reparations, certainly reparations for historical issues like slavery.